My name is Hayden Bradley, and today we'll be talking about the orca whale, specifically SeaWorld. This topic was brought to my attention around a year or so ago when I met my girlfriend. She knows all about the orca whale. She's a fact book for it. So I'm going to start off by talking about how intelligent this animal is. It has as part of its brain dedicated specifically to emotions. They can feel sad, they can feel happy, they can feel aggressive. They have all of these emotions. They even have their own language that is unique to each individual pod, which a pod is the gathering of a family of orcas. These orcas are captured strictly from the ocean and is done by hunters and fishermen going out and stalking and hunting these animals for days and days until they get them exactly where they want them in a cornered location. They drop ropes down deep so the orcas cannot swim underneath them. They then take the babies from the pod and then leave once they are done. This leaves the other orcas in the pod left there. They do not leave. They do not do anything besides stay there. They wait for their baby, expect it to come back, which it never does. They sit there and cry and scream and yell, and this has been proven by many people who specifically saw it in 1970 when the incident of over 90 orcas were stalked and hunted for days and months on end with speedboats, explosives, and even airplanes to get these orcas into SeaWorld. Once they get to SeaWorld, they're put in a tank that is 1/1,000th the size of the ocean and are trained strictly just to eat. They do these tricks knowing that they will be fed afterwards, and if they don't do the tricks, they will eventually die. They prosper as a pod in the wild, but when put in these tanks, they are either isolated or put with a different orca, which could turn out to be an even worse situation. Females are much more dominant and aggressive than males, so when a male is put in the same tank as a female, the female tends to dominate over the male, and this will lead to incidents and fights amongst the two because they are not from the same pods. There is no love between the two. The aggression in males is very obvious and is seen specifically in Tillicum, who killed 3 different trainers in 3 different SeaWorld locations. SeaWorld tried to say that this was the trainer's fault, but in reality it was due to the aggression that came from depression, stressful levels, and just being left in isolation with complete boredom. Being used as toys is what their entire goal is. They don't have any purpose but to do what their trainer says and perform for these people and go back into a life of boredom. They have no other option because if they don't perform, they will die because they will not be fed. Even if you visit these parks when there are no shows going on, it is by quiet, you will realize that these animals appear almost lifeless. They are floating around with complete boredom. They have no motivation. They'll even be eating the paint off the walls out there that bored. And it is shown by the dorsal fin. In the wild, there's 1% of dorsal fins collapsed. In orca world, it is a 100% fact that all males have a collapsed dorsal fin, and the SeaWorld trainers will tell you that this is a normal occurrence, but it is not. It is from depression and stress atmospheres which they are put through daily and daily, and that is the only life they have, meaning that is what they are left with, a collapsed dorsal fin. The average lifespan of a female orca in the wild is 80 years, and for a male it is 50 years. But in SeaWorld, there's no difference. For both of them, it is 25 to 30 years. And the trainers will even tell you that this is how it is in the wild, but it is not. For the future generations of orcas, the ones left in SeaWorld deserve to be put in an ocean sanctuary where they are only interacting with humans just to be fed. That is it. They need many, many miles of ocean to roam around and do what they want to, because they will never be allowed to go back or be able to go back into the wild and survive. This is not an option anymore for these animals, but a better life is always an option for them. Another option would be to no longer breed, which will allow the orcas that are in SeaWorld to slowly die off, which is the second option, but it is one of them. And this will allow for the future generation of orcas to no longer go through this and just be free in the wild and prosper as they are. SeaWorld is strictly a money-making thing. The CEOs at the top treat these animals just like toys and only used for money. They do not care about their feelings, emotions, or anything about it. The ability to change is possible. People can go on orca watching in the wild and can see the pod and dynamic of a family. It is cruel to say you can enjoy watching an orca in a tiny tank swimming around with no life in it. There is no pleasure in SeaWorld, only cruel treatment and lies within. For the betterment of these animals, open your eyes to a world beyond you and never support SeaWorld or never support the capturement of orcas specifically.